Okay, how are you guys? I pray you're doing nothing short of incredible. I pray that you guys are happy and that all is going well with you. I pray that you have a blessed Apostles' fast so far and that you're finding these videos fruitful and helpful in any way, shape, and form. Last video, we took a look at the history of the Coptic language as it developed from ancient Egyptian, but we didn't look at how to read, how to write, and that's what you're here for. So today we're going to be looking at how to read Coptic, okay? Starting with the letters. Now I want to start with the letters that look familiar, okay? The letters that are not going to be too complex or too difficult for us to understand, okay? So we're going to take a look at them, and I pray that you guys find this video helpful in any way, shape, and form, but we'll just get started into it, okay? Now in the Coptic language, okay, we have a total of 31 characters, 31 letters. Okay, 24 are borrowed from Greek and 7 from Demotic Egyptian, as we discussed the history last time. Okay, 24 consonants and 7 vowels. Now, I don't want you to get this mixed up. Okay, it's not the 7 vowels are from Egyptian. It just happens to be that there's 24 consonants and 7 vowels, and 24 characters borrowed from Greek and 7 borrowed from Demotic Egyptian, right? But total, it's 31 characters. I want to start with the characters that look like what you read in English, right? The ones that don't look too different, and the ones that are pronounced as they would be pronounced in English, okay? So we're going to take a look at those characters right now, and God willing, it'll be a little bit helpful, okay? But we're going to start with our very first vowel, and that's going to be the vowel alpha, okay? Which looks like this. And please forgive me, my Coptic script is not that good. That is the capital alpha, that's the lowercase alpha, okay? Alpha will make a sound a as in father, okay? As in father. Sometimes it can also be a as in fan, okay? But a as in father, usually, okay? And that's alpha, okay? That looks like an A, and it's going to be pronounced like an A, okay? Whether it's in uppercase or lowercase, okay? But usually it's a as in father, which is why when we talk about Adam, for example, when you read the word Adam, as in Adam and Eve, when you read Adam in Coptic, it's Adam, right? Because the second A is as in father, so it's Adam rather than Adam, which is much more like Americanized kida. So it's not usually going to be this one. It's more often going to be this one, but as in father. Okay. The next one we're going to take a look at is the following. This, its uppercase pretty much looks like a one almost, but it's pretty much the same. This one is called yota. Okay. And yota makes an I sound. Okay. As in sink, not sink actually. Yeah, sink could be a good one. As in sink, okay? It can also at times make a Y sound, right? As in yum, okay? That Y there, but it can also be sink, all right? It's less like an E and more like a right? So sink. You're not really saying sink, you're saying sink, okay? So that's iota, that's alpha, okay? The next vowel that we have that's not too difficult is O, okay? And that one's going to be like this, all right? O. Um, Importantly, this one is short. So O, it makes the O sound. Um, the best way I can describe it, and I forget where I got this from, but it's O as in the British way of saying not. So you wouldn't say, like the American way of saying not is not, but in British it sounds not. That's the way it's going to sound. Oh, right? Oh, not. Oh, okay? As in not with a British accent. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it. but makes sense, I think. I hope. Okay. That covers those vowels. One more vowel we're going to have, okay, is that A, okay? A is going to be like this. It's also called epsilon, all right? But it makes an sound, as in pen, okay? And at times, it's going to have the A sound of rain. Really depends on the situation, but most time it's as in pen, okay? So we have alpha, iota, O, and E or epsilon, okay? Or sorry, no, this is not epsilon, sorry. Forgive me, epsilon is a different vowel. Scratch what I said about epsilon. Um, but A, okay, or E, A or E. So this is E, A, O, iota, alpha, okay? A as in father, I as in, or is in sink, Y as in yum at times, O as in the British accent of the word not. Okay, so O like that, and E as in pen, sometimes A as in rain. Okay, that covers the consonants that look a lot like their English equivalents and sound exactly like their English equivalents. Okay, I want to now cover some other, or sorry, those are the vowels, not the consonants. I want to get into the other vowels that we have. Okay, we have another. This is epsilon, so forgive me for the mistaken confusion here. Okay, but you're going to see this thingy. Okay, it's an epsilon. It takes three particular sounds. Okay, usually it's going to be I. Okay, and the same way as in sink, it's going to be like that. So, as in sink. The other is it can be a V. This is going to be strange. It can be a consonant, okay, as in Victor. And there's very, very rare instances in which it makes an O sound. But most of the time, it's this or this. It depends on the position of the word. And all of these rules, by the way, really depend on the position of the word. Okay, all of these depend on the position of the word. So the case of epsilon, especially, right? But same thing with A and O and iota and alpha. Okay. The next case that I want to introduce is U. Okay, U. U looks like this. Okay. Um, at times, I believe people will try to call it an omega. I've always known it as U, but regardless, that's what you want to understand it as. Okay, U. It doesn't make an O sound, it makes an O long sound, okay? It's gonna make an O as in throw, okay? So here, the reason why I want to emphasize not, right? Not O, it's a very short O. Here it's a short O. This is a long O, okay? So this is O, O. Very small difference. O, O. As it pertains to Coptic hymns and pronunciation, it's pretty much going to sound the same. Like it's not going to be too different, especially as you're reading things quickly. You're going to read through them pretty fast. Okay? So this U sound makes a long O, or this U letter makes a long O sound. Okay? People like to call it omega. You can call it omega, I guess. But yeah. So that's the sound that it's ultimately going to make. The next one we have is a little bit strange. It's called Ita. Ita makes an E sound, as in C. Okay. It's an H, and that's going to be probably the hardest adjustment in Coptic is that there's going to be letters that look like they're English letters, but are actually not their English letters. Okay. That's going to be the toughest part. So Ita is one of those. It's an H, but it makes an E sound, right? So E as in C. All right. And that takes us through the seven vowels that we have. Okay. Most of them aren't too bad, right? The ones that you may have to get used to are these because they look a bit different, right? Epsilon, O, and eta. Okay. But For the most part, the others are pretty straightforward. Okay, and we're going to look at some example texts to really make sense of it. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the consonants. All right. And our first consonant is beta or vita, either one. It can be referred to as beta. Sometimes it's referred to as vita. It really depends on the source. It's important to note that the agreed upon letters of Coptic have not always been so agreed upon. I should be clear with that. This is the uppercase. This is the lowercase. It has a little thing underneath, not drawn to scale. This will have two cases. It's going to make a V as in Victor, or it's going to be B as in boy. And again, it depends on the position and the type of word. So B as in boy, you'll see commonly if you have a proper noun, if you have a name of something, usually it will be B as in boy. So for example, there's a part of the Tasbaha in the second canticle where we say Og, the king of Bashan. In Coptic, it's Og iporo ente ith Basan, right? Bashan is a proper noun. It's a place. So you wouldn't use V, right? It's not Ethvasan, it's Ethbasan. So Bashan in Coptic is Ethbasan. Likewise, right? Sabaoth, right? Holy, 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 Lord of Sabaoth. It's not going to be Savaoth in Coptic, it's Sabaoth. Okay. There's a couple exceptions, right? Like Abba Victor in the commemoration of the saints in Tasbaha. That's going to be a V because it's Victor. So you wouldn't say Victor, right? You'd say Victor. Okay. But another word that you might see that's not a proper noun, right? But where we actually end up using it as a V in that case, right? Would be, for instance, the word. Let me think of a good example for vita. Evshi, okay? Evshi means to slumber, right? Or tevd. Tevd translates to fish, even though it uses a beta, right? Or vita in it, or a B sound, right? So I'm going to write out um, if she, right? And you're not going to know all of these letters. That's okay. Um, but that's actually a really bad uh, script that I had right there. But this is Evshi, which means to slumber. Notice here, it's not Eb she, it's Ev she, right? So beta can do different sounds. When it's also the last letter of a word, it's going to make a B sound. So F-O-Eb, you've likely heard that, right? F-O-Eb, F-O-Eb, B at the end, not F-O-Ev, right? Um, but for the most part, it's going to be V. If it's followed by a vowel, that's another case, it's going to be a V, all right? There's always different exceptions, right? Um, but for the most part, that seems to be the rule, okay? The next one that we have that I want to introduce that's going to look pretty familiar is kappa. Okay, kappa, pretty much looks identical, uppercase and lowercase, is going to make a K sound as in cook. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, it's going to make a K sound as in cook. The next we have is sima, makes a S sound, and it's going to be an S as in salad. Okay, so as in salad. Okay. The next one we have is tav. Okay, and it's not a J, but it looks a little bit like a J when I wrote that, but like that. Okay, tav. It's gonna make a T sound as in take. Okay, as in take. Take. All right. The next that we're going to have, all right, is T. And this is worth introducing here. This is the uppercase, right? This is going to make a T sound as in T, okay? There's a difference. Even when it's followed by a vowel, that's going to make a T sound. So we have T and T, okay? So that's important to note there. All right. Which is that it's going to have two different sounds. All right. Which is t and t, depending on if it's a t like a cross, okay, or if a t as in take. Okay, so if you have tav, it's a t, and if you have t, it's going to be a t, of course. All right. The next one that we're going to introduce is zeta. Okay, zeta, another pretty straightforward one. Oops. The other one is zeta. Okay. Um, zeta. It's going to make a Z sound as in zebra. Okay, so zeta. So far, many of these letters look like letters we have seen in the English language. Okay. The next one we're going to have is may. Okay, may. Um, the reason I introduced this letter is because it looks a lot like an M, and that's because it makes an M sound, as in mother. Okay, so m, as in mother. The next one that's worth introducing is nay, which makes an N sound, as in Nancy, as in Nancy. Okay, so that's not too bad. Now, we have all of this, okay? I want to now begin to introduce some of the letters that maybe are not going to look too familiar or might seem a little bit confusing. And the first and really confusing one is going to be this one, which is row, because it makes an R sound as in row your boat, or room. Okay? It's a P. It looks like a P, like the English P, but it makes an R sound. And sometimes when you read Coptic, especially if you're not focusing and you're reading too fast, it's going to be easy to take a look at it and be like, oh, P, right? So, for example, if you're reading something and it's Tichorompi, right? Maria Tichorompi ethnisos, right? When we sing that is the Theotokeia, okay? Um, Tichorompi, you could easily, if you're reading fast, go Tichopompi, right? But it's not Tichopompi, it's Tichorompi, okay? So when you see that row, that P, put it into your head that that's an R. That one and Ita are going to be really confusing, right? Because Ita is an H in English and row is a P in English. So you're going to be really incentivized to say H, right? Or sound. And likewise with row, you're going to be really incentivized to say P, right? But you're not. Okay, it's going to be a R sound, row. All right. The next one that we're going to introduce, the last one, actually, I'll just flip the page to the next one, is going to be the following, which is, okay, as you can probably see it, gamma. Okay, gamma is going to be interesting here because it makes a G sound in most cases, as in go. But when you have two gammas, okay, next to each other, they make an N sound. Okay, a great instance that you can see this is the word in Coptic insalpengos. Um, that's, I believe, an insalpengos. I might be wrong, but if that's not it, that's okay. Um, this right here, two G's will make an N sound when combined together. They make an N sound. Okay. The next one that we have is delta. Okay, delta. Delta, as you can likely imagine, makes a D sound. Okay, as in dad. Okay, so it makes a delta sound. Sometimes they'll make a th sound, like a TH sound, in some cases, but especially when you have it in the names, if you have a name of something, it will be delta. Okay, the sound. The next one we have is the following, which is theta. Theta makes a TH sound, as in think. Okay? So as in think. All right? The next one we have is sometimes referred to as lambda or lavla, but it's an L, as in um, look. Okay, this is the uppercase. as in look. Okay, L as in look. The next we have is a very complicated one. Okay, but it's this. It's and this is the uppercase version of it. I'll show you the this is the lowercase version of it. This is XC. It makes an X sound, as in box. Okay, XC as in box. The next one, a very big and common one, you'll see this one a lot. Pretty much looks the same, lowercase and uppercase, is P, which makes a P as in Peter, right? So if you read Coptic, you'll see Petros, the upcoming Feast of the Apostles. Um, Petros, Pavlos, starts with a P, okay? Huh. The next one we have is an interesting one. It's going to be Phi, okay, Phi. It honestly looks very, very similar in its uppercase and lowercase form, but it makes an F as in fan, okay? F as in fan, okay? The next one we have is K, which pretty much is going to be an X, and it makes different sounds, okay? There's three. One is going to be the regular K sound, as in cook, okay? The next is going to be the H sound, okay? This is tough because it's not really an English equivalent, but if you're familiar with Arabic, the Arabic dish molokhaya, it's going to be kh, khen, kh, right? So you're using the top of your throat there, kh, okay, kh, um, as in molokhaya. I don't know if that's how you spell it, but molokhaya, okay? And the next is sh, okay, as in she. Can do any of those, okay? Again, depending on the position of it. The next we have is this one, okay? Um, and again, it's quite similar in both of its lowercase and uppercase form, but it's epsi, and it makes a ps sound, okay? Are both pronounced, so ps sound, ps, eps. So you'll see epsalmos is an example of that, right? Epsalmos is an example of that word, okay? The next word that we have is the following. Okay. Oops. All right. Oops. Trying to not get this thing to do the usual kind of auto correction. But it's the letter shy. Okay, shy. This makes a sh sound, as in shake. Okay. The next we have is phi. Okay, again, pretty much the same in its uppercase and lowercase. It makes a f as in fan as well. So it's a derivative. You might see this one, you might see this one, just the same thing. Okay. Another one that we have is chai. Okay, chai makes two different sounds. Okay, this is the uppercase, this is the lowercase. Okay, but it makes a ch as in the molocheya case we saw. It's again up your ch and the top. There's no really English equivalent again, but it's a ch, okay, ch. So you have to practice that. The next we have is hori, okay, hori. It makes an H as in he or house, okay, hori. All right. Then we can take a look onto the next word. All right. The next letter we're going to have is the following. And I'm not going to draw it out too well, forgive me, but it's the following. Okay, it has usually a little bit curve here, and it's pretty much the same in its lowercase form as well, but it's Genga. Okay, it's gonna make a J sound, as in John, or G, as in go. It depends on the position of the word. Okay. The last one we're going to have, you're not going to see it too frequently, but it's worth bringing up, is the following. Okay. It's a chima. Okay. And it makes a ch as in church. Okay. Makes a ch as in church. The last is not really a letter, but it's worth introducing. It's this little mark here, okay? And you'll see it over a letter. This is called a jin kim. A jin kim essentially inserts an before the a consonant, or it just makes a vowel stand alone as its own. But the purpose is to introduce a syllable, okay? In the next video, we're going to take a look at examples of reading Coptic from Tasbaha and from the liturgy, and we'll see what the Jin Kim really does. But when I place a Jin Kim over, let's say this, over this, if you see right here, right? If I place it over this, right? I now have an esh, okay? If I have on its own, it's sh, but with a Jin Kim, it's esh, okay? If I had it on a vowel, like alpha, I'm not gonna go ah, I'm just gonna go ah. It's gonna be its own separate syllable, okay? So the reason why we introduce all of this, the reason why we're taking a look is to introduce to the letters. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how we actually read it in Coptic and looking at the examples. Because the best practice for learning the letters is to actively go and look at the text itself and to get acclimated to it and to read it. Okay? That's probably the best way to do it. Okay? So these are the introduction to the letters. And in reading it, we'll take a look at different instances of why particular things are pronounced the way they are in those instances. But these are the very basic letters of Coptic. Okay. I hope you guys found this video helpful in any way, shape, and form. Please watch the following video in which we read, because this on its own will likely not be enough. You will likely also need to have a video in which you take a look and learn. But my recommendation is to practice writing the letters, to practice pronouncing them. You don't need to know the names of the letters, right? Like you don't need to know Yota versus like Vita versus Zita. Like the names are not that important. And in practically, I lived a very long life without knowing the names of the letters, just knowing how they're pronounced and knowing the grammatical rules around them. That's it. So you don't need to know the names necessarily. You just have to know what sound they make, okay? Especially in the context of their position, which is what the next video is going to be about. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video so far. We're going to do the next video now. And I love you guys so much. Please continue to pray for the service. And if you need anything, please always let me know. Love you guys.